Hi guys and welcome to Fandom Newbie. My name is Shruti and today I'm going to be talking about the best books I have read in 2021 so far. So it is June already. Like, can you guys believe that 6 months of the year are already over? That is just absolutely crazy. So I thought that now would be the perfect time for me to talk about some of the best books that I have read this year. I have read a total of 43 books so far, which I think is just amazing. This year has been one of my best reading years so far. But yeah, I have read 43 books and I have a few books that I want to talk about. So without further ado, let's just get started. So I've kind of categorized these books kind of like a book tag video, so I can talk about like multiple books and different kinds of books in that sense. So yeah, let's just get started with the first category, which is your favorite book that made you laugh the most this year. And in this one, I have The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan, which is the first book in the Percy Jackson series. Now, I am currently in the midst of reading the series. I am on book 4, which is The Battle of the Labyrinth, and I'm really enjoying the book series so far. So stay tuned for a book series review video, as well as the Bookbound Club, which is on 12th June. We're having our first live show where we're going to be discussing about Percy Jackson. So stay tuned for that as well. Please start reading Percy Jackson if you haven't already. Okay, enough announcements. Anyway, this book is so funny. Like, Rick Riordan's writing is so sarcastic, it's so witty, it is just so hilarious. Like, I literally had a few laugh out loud moments while I was reading this book, and I absolutely loved that. Like, there are very few books that make me laugh out loud, and this is definitely one of them. If you guys don't know, the Percy Jackson series is basically a mythological fantasy series where Rick Riordan has taken all the Greek mythological characters and he's woven them into our everyday world. And it's kind of like an adventure series that follows our main character Percy Jackson as he goes on quests in this world which has like Greek gods and goddesses and monsters and all of that, and it is just an absolutely fun and amazing book series to read. And like I said, it is super duper funny. The next book that made me laugh out loud this year is definitely Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. I've spoken about this book a couple of times on my channel, but I just absolutely adored this book. This one is also super silly, super funny, and just very, very relatable. It follows a bunch of quirky characters, the main character being a bank robber who is just the most incompetent bank robber ever because they try to rob a cashless bank and then end up taking a bunch of people hostage accidentally. So it's kind of like a bank robbery gone wrong, followed by an accidental hostage situation, which is also filled with just really funny, quirky characters. And it just like, it's the perfect place for just hilarious things to happen. And it is just such a funny, heartwarming, relatable book. And again, I had a few laugh out loud moments while reading this book. The next category is my favorite book that made me cry the most this year. Now, no book has actually made me cry, like actually like sob this year so far, but the one that got closest to making me cry and making me feel super emotional is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Oh my god, this book is so beautiful, it is so emotional, and it is so amazing. Like, this is honestly one of my favorite books of all time, I feel, because it is just so good. What this book is about is it's basically a retelling of the Iliad, which is a story of the Trojan War. So if you guys have watched the Brad Pitt movie Troy, that is the story of this book, and it is told from the point of view of Patroclus, who is this prince who has been exiled from his land, and it kind of follows the story of how Patroclus meets Achilles and how their friendship and love kind of grows, and it is just beautifully told. Like, Madeline Miller's writing is just so emotional, and it just has like, it has this almost poetic style to it where like everything that she talks about, whether it's love, whether it's hatred, whether it's sex, whether it's war, whether it's battles, like everything has like so much emotion and poetry, and it's just such beautiful writing that like it really made me emotional while reading it. So yeah, highly recommend this book. The next category is a new author I have discovered this year whom I now love. And again, I have two books in this category. The first one is I almost dropped things, but anyway, the first one is R.F. Kuang, who has written the Poppy War series. This is one of my favorite fantasy series that I have read this year. I don't have the first book. I listened to the first book on audiobook, and then I've bought the second and third book. I still have to actually read the third book. I haven't got around to doing that, but like so far the first and the second book have been just absolutely amazing. So what this book series is about is that it's basically a Chinese inspired fantasy series which is based on the Opium Wars that took place in China. Our main character is this war orphan named Rin, and she basically gets a chance to go into a military school, and while she is like training to be a soldier at the military school, basically war breaks loose in the empire, and Rin discovers that she has some latent magical powers that can actually be the key in helping her side win the war. And this book is just filled with so much like mysticism and magic, and it is such an amazing story. The other thing about this book is that the way R.F. Kuang has depicted war with the amount of brutality and the amount of realism and just like how brutally honest she has been in depicting war was so moving to read, and it was just like, I mean, I was just immersed into this world and I couldn't get out of it. And I'm so angry with myself that I haven't read the third book, which is The Burning God, but I really need to get around to doing that. But yeah, R.F. Kuang, an amazing author that I discovered this year. The other author that I discovered this year was Hank Green, who wrote An Absolutely Remarkable Thing. Now, a lot of people know his brother because his brother is John Green, who is a super famous author, but very few people know that Hank has also written a book, and this book has become one of my all-time favorite books. It is just so good. So what this book is about is that it follows our main character April as she stumbles upon a statue that has like suddenly appeared in New York City, and she's very intrigued by the statue. So she calls her friend and they film a YouTube video about it and they upload it online. What April doesn't know is that this statue just hasn't appeared in New York City, but it has appeared all over the world in almost every city, like every major city in the world. And because she's one of the first ones to kind of document the arrival of the statue, her video goes viral and she's like shot to internet fame. So that's one storyline which is going on. The second storyline is that there are some science fiction, like crazy things happening to the statues, and April, while she's like battling her newfound internet fame, is also trying to solve the mystery behind this statue, what it is, why it suddenly appeared all over the world, and like she's completely kind of absorbed with this whole phenomena of the statue. And while that seems a little weird, like the premise might seem a little weird, what is amazing about this book is how through this like really weird storyline, Hank Green has explored like the different aspects of modern life, which is what it means to be a social media influencer, what it means to be absorbed in a kind of fan culture, what it means to be like suddenly shot to fame because of social media, and how it affects your relationships, how it affects your day-to-day life, how it affects your mental health, and just all of these things. And he's written about it in such a witty, in such a fun, and in such an engaging and absorbing way that like I just fell in love with this book. So if you're interested in any of these things, then I highly recommend this book as well. The next category is an unexpected book that has now become my favorite, and for this one I have The Infernal Devices trilogy by Cassandra Clare. Now I'm going to be very honest with you, I was one of those people who had said that I would never read a Cassandra Clare book. Like I was just like, no, I don't want to read Cassandra Clare, it's too mainstream, I don't know what Mortal Instruments is about. Like I had watched, I think, the TV show and I had not liked it at all. So I was just like, no, I don't want to read Cassandra Clare. Like that'll be like one author who I'll pass. I just don't want to read her books. And then for some reason I was in the mood for like a romantic fantasy book, and I was looking up online of what is a good romantic fantasy book. And this is the one that was recommended by a lot of people, so I started reading it, and oh my god, I fell in love with it. This book series is such a guilty pleasure read, especially if you love like romance and you love fantasy and if you love love triangles. This book series is just the perfect book to read if you just want to like escape from reality and just fall into a magical world with amazing characters and just like a very engaging love story. And the last category is one of your most anticipated books that totally lived up to the hype. And for that one, I have A Sky Beyond the Storm by Sabaa Tahir. Now, this is the fourth book of the Ember in the Ashes series, and I know that this released last year, but I read this book this year. It was the first book that I read this year, and oh my god, it totally lived up to the hype. It was one of the best endings to a YA fantasy series. The way Sabaa Tahir has kind of like wrapped up everyone's storylines is so good, and it just makes so much sense. And like, honestly, like, this book was a complete emotional roller coaster. And you know what? I just realized I did cry while reading this book. So I found another book actually that I cried while reading. I completely forgot about that. I sobbed while reading this book. So yeah, I have another one for what I spoke about, like a book that made me cry. This was that book. Oh my god, I cannot believe I completely forgot that I cried while reading this book. But yeah, I cried a lot while reading this book, and it was the perfect ending to the Ember Quartet, and I just absolutely loved it. If you guys don't know, the Ember in the Ashes series is a young adult fantasy series which takes place in a Middle Eastern inspired fantasy world, and it follows our two main characters, Elias and Laya. Laya is a part of like a group of people who are very oppressed in the fictional world in which this series is set in, and Elias belongs to the military that kind of does the oppressing of Laya's cast of people. And basically, like, the story is about how Laya and Elias meet in kind of like an unexpected way, and just what happens after their worlds kind of collide. And it is just such a wonderful, wonderful series. So highly recommend. And like, I felt that it ended really nicely. So yeah. So yeah, that was my video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys got some nice book recommendations. If you did, give this video a big fat thumbs up. Leave a comment down below letting me know some of your favorite books that you have read this year so far. I would really like to know. And of course, do subscribe to my channel for more book related videos like these. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.